Good morning, everybody. I'm Stefano, working at GeoSolutions as front-end developer, and in this presentation, I'll show you use case that a study that we are currently working on that it's related to the city of Genova and how it's their infrastructure is built. So we started to collaborate with the Comune of Genova, the city, from the 2014 to create this hybrid GIS infrastructure that was based on open sources software. So we designed with them continuous design with them how the tools that are integrated also in the MapStore core to create this new plugin that could help to visualize and analyze data. And also a part to monitoring the access of data through Elasticsearch and Kibana. Here, a list of the component of their infrastructure. To serve data, and they are using GeoServer, that it's an open source server that you can manage and publish data with OGC specification. They have this custom installation of GeoNode, and mainly they wanted to provide raster and vector data related to the municipality, and have the possibility to work through MapStore as front-end through the REST API and change styling of their content. And they needed also support for this different database system, so the GeoServer integration allows also this through plugins. And have a system of clusters and a control flow to control the data requested to the server. Inside the GeoNode, the GeoServer system, they also are using the GeoWeb cache. It's able to cache and store requests through WMS, WMTS, MSC, TMS, and KML. So when the requesting tiling and if the layer when they are properly configured, those are stored and memorized in the GWC system, and at that point there will be the request of the tile will be cached and not re-render every time for each request. They are using geofence because they need in their system to manage access to services and to layers based on group, IP addresses. They need also to specific OG services available for specific user, and also access to layer and workspace available to their system. So they using geofence. There is also an integration of a client user interface, so they can manage through MapStore the rules that they need. So there is a plugin and a page built for this specific project, and it's available also in the core of MapStore if one want to enable that through the MapStore product to allows this kind of restriction and authentication through layers. They are using the GeoNetwork catalog to manage their resources. They need also to have a specific metadata validation, and for this reason they choose the GeoNetwork system and the catalog application to, let's say, to collect and share their data. Finally, as open source front-end, they're using MapStore. Within the MapStore, they also contributing on the and porting some of the functionality that we currently have, thanks to their work to the core of MapStore, and they help us also to improve some integration. In particular, the last one was the cesium integration by improving some functionality of the 3D part. And the use of this front end allow us also to add some new component that was not available in the core to the MapStore framework extensibility. by default allows to use WMTS, WMS, and also provider like OSM Bing. So for their use case was a sort of the idea to mesh up content and visualize and create visualization was their focus. So with the help through MapStore and GeoServer, they were able to create this sort of visualization. Here the daily Geoportal. As I mentioned, it's based on MapStore, and they are using for not only the, let's say, technical part, but also for the citizen. Their focus is to have this sort of balanced environment where they have a sort of back office system to work on the data, to analyze the data, to apply style the data. And then another part that is for the public to visualize, interact with the data, and for some specific topic. So it's not only focus on the technical user, but also to the citizen user, because it's related to the city of Genova and the urban environment. We choose the MapStore based also to the way it's possible to customize, to also be compatible with the most common browser, and this is a part that was a requirement. And initially there was also the support for Internet Explorer. Currently it's deprecated, so we moved to Edge part. And another focus on the use case was the use of different authentication systems, such the LDAP and the SPID. So we improved both the MapStore front end and back end to allow this integration and allows to use this new authentication system. Here, an overview of their viewer. As a theming, they choose to keep the default one, so as the main product. This is the map viewer with one of their map related to the tourism, where it's focused on when there is an highlight, also the use of charts on top of the maps. And on the left, you can see the table of content where it's possible by expanding each card to have a legend that use GeoServer behind through the get legend graphic request to visualize and understand the content of this map. On the left, the tool that you can see in this new sidebar, before we had a drop-down menu, are the one that MapStore provide out of the box, but at the bottom you can see there is a different one. Probably, I don't know if it's really visible. And for example, in that case, they needed a specific link to their catalog that is the GeoNetwork one. And with MapStore, we were able to extend this and from using the base functionalities. One tool that also they are using is the attribute table, not only to reading data, but also to editing data. The attribute table in MapStore behind use a WFS transaction request. So in this case, through the open layers integrated in MapStore, we are able to draw new geometries and then send this request to the server. That it's the authentication system through the MapStore and the GeoServer, it's aligned, so it's able to receive those requests and add new features to the layers on the database. One improvement that was done both on client side, server side, so the styling system, when we start to work on 3D, we had a basic styling system for the vector layer that could be rendered inside a map. So we needed, in the last year, we worked on an implementation, the Visual Style Editor, that was aligned to the previous one that we had, that was based only on the REST API of GeoServer. This new one provides some similar, let's say, rules to apply to the style, point, line, polygon, and marker that will work also, for example, not only a WFS, but a GeoJSON that you import on the map. An interesting part for the new 3D environment that we added also the model symbolizer that use a GLTF model, so you can have a point and to that point apply, instead of a marker, a model itself that will inherit the properties of the vector layer. Layer settings, also work has been done on this side. Mainly here you can see the display panel where there are a lot of functionality that based also in their integration that works a lot with GeoServer. We allow also to apply vendor parameters such as the what it's called, the one related to the internationalization of the styles, and the one related to the cache. So also we get the information through the WMTS to apply the correct type grade to the layer, and at that point get the correct heat of the GeoWeb cache system behind. Here an example of the catalog where you can import the data. This is in their infrastructure. So the UI on the left show the list of layers that are present in, for example, in this case, I think it's a CSW catalog that could be imported, for example, like WMS. And on the right, the possibility to include and customize the service that we want to use. By default, they have included the one that comes from their GeoServer. Improvement has been done, and now it's a bit dark, the image here, but on the measurement tool, they help us to improve the measurement of 3D features, and so enhance the Cesium part to have sort of a different way to measure the feature of their building. They have this 3D tile of the city, and they want to take advantage of this data to, for example, have the quote of some element, to have the also able to measure the vertical surface of buildings. Dashboard, they included the dashboard that there are in MapStore with the same functionality, with some enhancement also on the layout part to reduce and make available the global visualization in a single view. And in this case, it's one of the dashboard that I will talk later about the topic around of this. They, in the case, have the step wizard to allow us to create new charts, new charts or different kind of widget. By default, you will find 5 widgets in the UI of MapStore. Then if you add a new map, you could add also a legend to assign and apply to a specific layer. There is also some enhancement on the possibility to connection in between widgets, in particular maps and table. So there is a logic of parent children to apply, for example, if charts it's connected to a map, you can use the bounding box to filter the content of the charts. The same of the table, if you connect some charts to the table and filter the content, you will filter also the content of the charts. They also include the GeoStory application, so the way to create a scrollable story, like with section and immersive content. So they creating the maps, for example, is an example of architectures that want to highlight in the city, and they are creating the maps with the map viewer, and then in the story include those content with description and highlight of some routes that could be taken in the city to as tourists or as a study to visualize this kind of architecture. So here is an highlight of the edit part, where you can see how to edit these elements. So when you go in edit of a GeoStory, you have these three. Each of these represent a section that you can drag and drop and move around and recompose your story. Here an example of media. So they created a map and then put this map inside their story. Here is the application context manager. So they wanted also to include in their installation of MapStore that come from MapStore from, I think last year was the implementation of this application content manager, so they can step by step create a specific viewer where not all the plugins are available. For example, in this case, they decide to remove the sidebar, have some tools enabled by default, and have a drop down at the top just to show some few plugins that needed for this visualization. For example, this one were related to I think the cycle building, no, the routes inside the city to walk around. Some example of the usage. Map of tourism, so they take data from services in the city, some spots, highlighted spots that the citizen could visualize and use as information to navigate around and understand, for example, those marked red represent the information points that one could reach if they need. So they use this as for the citizen as a instrument to navigate the city. They used MapStore for the election in 2022 for the municipality. They keep to updating the data, and then they have this map as like final results, where show which one was the evolution of the votes for this election. So this is another use case that they apply using MapStore and all the system behind that. They're using also this for the historical building on the city, not only just as I showed before, tourism, but also to highlight some problem that could be in the building, so some that could be fixed. So it's sort of less true from the citizen, more to the technician that needs to understand if some fixes need to be done to some buildings. So this is another use case that they apply using this infrastructure. Urban planning, using this, so in the technical side, they uploaded all the data related to the urban plan of the city, so it could be accesses to the citizen and some layer restricted to the technical part, maybe because there are some analysis and evolution of the process of the planning. Here the architecture example, they collected the most significant building in the city and created this map through also an enhancement and the usage of the free market template of GeoServer. So they were able, through MapStore and GeoServer, to have a complete visualization with a card for each building that was inside the map. Here the residential architecture example of the GeoStory. They took the maps but highlight only a road, so they imported the map that created and then tell a story about all this environment through some paths that could be taken inside the city. Dashboard used for the accessibility of some area. So the use of multiple maps, the use of data, the attribute table and charts to compare to different ways to access. So this is a usage that they are doing with the dashboard, so the advantage to have multiple maps and charts at the same time. To conclude this presentation, here there are the links to the documentation. The first one is related to the user guide of the latest release, and the second one is related to development guide for the latest release. So if you want to take a look on MapStore, what it's providing, and the City of Genova, it's using most of the functionality. I mean, I think all the functionality available in the release, you can take a look there if you are interested in those. So thank you, and if there are some questions.